what do you think South African people bring to the table?
South Africans have very high work ethic. And then it's also our level of English.
If a company has never worked with South African talent before, even if they hire globally or remotely, there's a bit of a, but this is Africa kind of mindset. In many cases, how much more hardworking and how much more skilled we are. That mentality is so unproductive. I do some of my best work in days where I work 4 hours or days where I work 6 hours.
The one constant in this industry is change. Like change is always going to be there.
Hello, and welcome to South Africa Tech Marketers, where I uncover the journeys of marketers who are absolutely thriving in South Africa and beyond in the hope of helping you do the same. My name is Kirsty Lang. I am a senior content writer working remotely in Cape Town for a tech company called Buffer, and I'm thrilled to be joined in the virtual studio today by someone who is also bringing their marketing talent to the global stage in a very unique and interesting way. Before we get into that, the show is brought to you by the Global Talent Company, which aims to help marketers based in South Africa find their dream remote jobs at incredible tech companies all over the world. So if you are a marketer looking for your next gig, or you are looking to recruit some amazing South African talent, which I highly recommend, definitely check out the Global Talent Co. That's their website. We will put it in the show notes too. Now, with me today is Herman Eloff, who is the Chief of Staff at Turning Pro podcast, which I'm sure many folks listening will be familiar with. Herman, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Kirsty, thank you so much for having me.
No, it's wonderful to have you here. I'm so excited we get to catch up again. We caught up fairly recently, but now we're doing it and recording it. I feel like we should have recorded the catch up we had a few weeks ago, but
yeah, you always think of that afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah, we are doing it now. So for folks who might not have heard of Turning Pro or are confused about the fact that I've invited a chief of staff onto a marketing podcast, I promise all will be explained. Herman, I was hoping you could kind of just give us a brief explainer of who you are and what you do right now.
Yeah. At the moment, like you said, I'm the chief of staff at Turning Pro podcast. It's a podcast that's based in New York, hosted by Ben Schaff and Adrian Alfieri. And I basically run everything behind the scenes, from booking our guests, doing the research before the show, getting the questions ready. Then they film in New York. We have a producer there. And then all the footage gets uploaded onto a Dropbox. And from there, I go through the footage, send it to a video producer who helps put the podcast together. And then after that, I take over and do everything else from uploading the podcast, writing all the stuff that needs to be written around it, newsletter, article, social media. So yeah, that's in short what I'm doing at the moment.
So your role, you're kind of a one-man marketing band, but you also kind of facilitate everything else behind the scenes. So chief of staff feels is quite appropriate.
Yeah, at first I wasn't familiar with the chief of staff's title. It felt very White House, but it makes sense. It does make sense because at the end of the day, it's a combination of content management and process management. So.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're probably gaining so many fascinating new skills. Okay, I'm getting way ahead of myself in the conversation. I wanna double check my questions. So we start back at the beginning. Tell us, how did you get to where you are now? What has your career journey been like?
Sure. So I've been in the industry for 16 years now. So I started actually as a crime reporter at a community newspaper. So did that for 2 years, where you were physically going out to the scene and reporting, taking photos, coming back, kind of doing everything. Yeah, because you're a community newspaper, you kind of get to do everything because it's small.
Chief
teams.
of staff.
Yeah,
of crime.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
And then I moved to Cape Town very early on in my career. I decided to do the shift from print to online. Now, back then, online wasn't that big a deal. We were mostly seen as the place where you upload the print content. That was literally
Right.
that was
It's so
literally
crazy
when
to
we
think
started.
that is so recent. Like
Yeah.
it is in not just in living memory, like just a couple of years back. Yeah. And now digital is
Absolutely.
it's so pervasive.
Yeah. So I made that switch pretty early on in my career, and I was lucky to kind of evolve with the digital publishing industry in South Africa as it kind of grew up with all its growing pains and everything. Went through and News 24 had an Afrikaans version back in the day called Nuus 24. And then I went over to Huisgenoot and yes. And then Channel 24 and News 24. And then after News 24, I started my journey on working with international brands.
Mm. And so this is not your first international role.
No,
as
so
I
after
understand.
after News 24, I was the content manager at the Discerning Cyclist. So that was a public or online publication based in the UK, completely focused on cycling and style, which is two things I like. So that worked out really well. We focused on cycling content and cycling style as well. So not necessarily competitive cycling, but daily cycling and cycling as a hobby and stuff like that. So it was a very lifestyle approach to content, and it was really, really nice. And then when they shut down, I joined the Turning Pro team.
I love that. And I think a lot of people kind of listening to this will be like, how did you get in? Like, how did you kind of break? It feels like such a huge step, a huge jump to kind of move from the South African industry to working, at an international company remotely. Tell us a little bit about that process.
So to be honest, like I wasn't really, I didn't even know that this was possible in this way. And I think a lot of that has to do with COVID coming in, and I was just doing everything online. So I realized I was able to do everything that I do from home anyway on my laptop. And when I left News 24, I was looking for something that could be online, and I found an agency that was specifically linking South African talent with publications in the UK. So that worked out really well for me. And that's actually how I got the first international gig and got my foot in the door with
that. It helps
with
a
this.
lot to work with a company like that, like the Global Talent Curve. And, there are some other folks who do it as well. It's so overwhelming. This is a little bit off on a tangent, but I recently, a couple of weeks ago, I made a TikTok. Just I was having some fun. I was experimenting with for an article that I was writing for Buffer, which makes social media management software, and I just chatted about how I got my remote job from South Africa, and it went nuts. And what I was amazed was how little folks understood about the process, how little folks understood that it was possible. And just, the comment section was wild and scary for a while.
Yeah.
And then also I think people started taking advantage of that ignorance as well. And kind of there were pop-up accounts pretending to be me and, offering to like, oh, hey, please buy my resources. Some folks sent me screenshots of these DMs that they were getting from these fake accounts. And that is because it seems so out of reach and so impossible to get an international gig as a South African person. But as a skilled South African, I mean, I keep saying this. We talked about this on the podcast with Jerusha that I did that will be up on Spotify and YouTube and all the other podcast channels if you haven't caught that one yet. But South African talent is so incredible. And so many folks, I think people are coming to kind of realize how resilient and hardworking and talented South African people are. So it really isn't such a big jump. Thank you for coming on that journey with me. But that is the point I was trying to make.
No, it's
It
true.
is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think South Africans, it's a market that international brands are also starting to explore now, more than before, I think, especially with the online being so readily available. And of course, we are really fluent and comfortable with English, which is a
Yeah.
big boost, a very important part of this.
And also, I mean, the time zone is great for companies in the UK. I mean, we're pretty
Yeah.
much aligned. I think we're same time as the UK now. We're same time as Europe for half the year. I don't
Yeah.
know, daylight savings confuses the heck out of me. But mostly we're very on par with the UK. But this is
Yes.
kind of leading me to one of the other questions that I wanted to chat to you about. So you are working American time at the moment.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about
Yes.
how that works.
So, yeah, I'm on New York time at the moment, which usually means I start in the afternoon and I go through into the evenings. So I'm available online, from about 3 o'clock until 11 p.m. But what's so great about the team that I'm working with is they are focused on results and not time watches, or they don't follow the clock. So if I have some time in the morning to work, I'll do that. I'll do some work in the morning, take a break, come back online in the afternoon, do some work again, log off and have some dinner and relax a bit and come back on. So what I found is that it's just a different way of thinking about working hours. It's not a 9 to 5, and that's so. I was actually saying to somebody, it's for the first time I'm fitting work into my life and not life into my work. You know what I mean?
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I feel the same. And, I think it can almost lead itself to, so I don't have to work US hours. Even though my company is based in the US, we have people working there from all over the world. And you are kind of the expectation is that and it's so funny to kind of come from quite a rigid corporate environment where at a company they treat you like a grown-up and they're just like, yeah, if the work gets done, work when you want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think a lot of people will be like, what? Like companies like that exist? Yes, they do. And a lot of folks appreciate that, work should fit into your life, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get that out of my head, having been in a 9 to 5 office job, not feeling guilty about it. Like literally, when I did my first gig with Descending Cyclists, I would log on at 9, sit at my desk the whole day until 5. It was a very, very difficult thing to be able to go like, oh, actually, I can work this much better and still deliver the same work. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. It makes so much sense. And I also find that some days are better work days for me than others. So like not every day follows the same pattern. And I say better work days, but maybe more productive would probably be the correct framework to look at it. So, I have a toddler. So some days she's toddlering as toddlers do. And I don't, and I don't get as much work done as I should. And then other days, I'm able to kind of log on, smash through a couple of things. I will work a little bit sometimes on a Saturday if I feel like I haven't gotten enough time in the week, but that will be, because I have, I know that I haven't kind of been working to my full potential. And it's always it's not tied to hours sitting in my seat. It's tied to outcome. And that is such a big shift. And it's so empowering because, sometimes projects will take you shorter amount of time than anticipated. And that means, you can kind of claim some of your time back. And that really incentivizes you to work smarter and to be more efficient.
Yeah. 100%.
I could never go back to...
No, I was thinking the same thing. I would really struggle to go back to an office and sit there 9 to 5 after you feel like you've kind of been enlightened and now you don't, you can't go back after that. You were talking about days that some days are better than others. Like for me, a Monday is a struggle because it's just like a tough day. So I tried to create my Mondays, started really slow. Like I'll go do a boxing session, then I'll go sit somewhere and have a coffee. Like there's no rush on a Monday. So Mondays are a little bit slow. Where Tuesday mornings I'm up early, I get ready, and then I jump online to start work so long. So yeah, that every day is different, and that also helps to stop that daily routine of just being every day being the same thing.
Yeah. And I found even kind of when I was, bums in seats from 9 to 5, and then you kind of have to like look when your colleagues are leaving, like, is it also okay to leave? That mentality is so unproductive. I do some of my best work in days where I work 4 hours or days where I work 6 hours. Or, some days I will work 10 hours if you add everything up, but it's because I'm energized, or I know, tomorrow's going to be a rough day because I've got these 5 errands to run. So I need to smash through a couple of things. I don't know. Just this freedom like you said, it's an enlightenment, I think.
Yeah. And it definitely comes from the top. Like Ben and Adrian are just so good with like encouraging this and doing this themselves. Like Ben will start his day with a cold plunge and a coffee.
I love that. That's so founder.
Yeah, exactly. And they have founder meetups where they start their day together, go for a run. I mean, I'm just inspired by that. It's like this founder lifestyle. And yeah, that is 100% possible.
And that's a lot of what they cover in the podcast, right? So that's kind of the content. That's your output. They interview other founders.
Yeah. So the podcast is with founders and investors, and it's about their turning pro moments, like the moments that they knew they had made it in their career, what led up to that, and how their lives changed since that. So like every week I get to sit in and listen to a founder talk about how they, cool. I know. And they all have a very high expectation on not even, they don't even call it life-work balance. It's just like how life and work come together in like a perfect way.
I love that so much. And something that you mentioned, they have founder meetups and they will go for a run together in the morning.
Yeah.
That is one of the potential drawbacks of working remotely and working for an international company, because you develop with these close relationships with the people that you work with. I mean, some of my colleagues I've never met in real life.
Yes.
In real life. Not, on a video call.
Yes.
Which is so weird, like meeting people. I don't know if you have met the folks that you work with.
No, so we haven't met yet. They're still in New York, yeah.
Oh, you're going to go soon. I can feel it.
I have to though, yeah.
Yeah. No, that sounds incredible. But so something that I think is really important is kind of building up a community of folks. And this is why, when I saw that we haven't kind of reconnected in a couple of years, but when, we kind of started chatting on LinkedIn again, and when I saw that you were doing such similar work to what I do, I think it really helps to find community in that way, to kind of connect with folks who are in your industry and to connect with folks who understand like the South African context as well, which is a big part of why we are setting up. So this is a not so subtle plug at all. This is why we are setting up the SA Tech Marketers community, which if it's not live already, by the time this podcast comes out, it should be live soon. And to join, you can hit the application link in the show notes. I haven't been excited. I love my work, but this project is just super, super exciting. And I think, hopefully we're going to be able to set up meetups in a couple of months. We can go for those morning runs, or, maybe we can join you for a boxing class or something sometime. And I think that like level of connection, it's really important for growing, but it's also really important for someone who's working remotely.
Absolutely.
Well.
And the founders and entrepreneurs on the show have the same problem, where they say it's a very lonely thing when you start your own business and you do your own thing. So connecting with other people in the same field as you is not just good for your mental health and all of that, but it's also great for building connections and for brainstorming and expanding all those kind of things. So there's a lot of benefits to that, and I think that's something that we need in South Africa, is those communities for those people who work remotely. I sometimes join a group of people that go once a month to a coffee shop. We choose a coffee shop and then we go and sit there and we co-work together for
I
a day.
love this.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yes.
Okay, I need to get the details after we hop off, because I think that's something I need as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I miss about working in an office.
Yeah. And it's like one day a month that you can go and it's not the most productive day because we chat a lot, but it's good. It's a really good experience.
Yeah, it's good for the soul. Herman, I've gone off on tangents about so many things. I want to come back to you and your journey.
Yeah.
So this is something that we've touched on a little bit, but I'd love it if you could kind of elaborate, or if there's anything specific any specific piece of advice. So you've worked with 2 companies based outside South Africa. What is your top advice for other South Africans looking to do the same?
Definitely work. So these positions I both got through 2 different agencies, and I think that is a really good place to start, because these agencies are specifically looking for South African talents, and they have the international connections. So definitely identify those agencies. I followed them on LinkedIn. And whenever they would post a job, I would check it out, see if I match, and then kind of get on their radar so that they know you are available or looking for something. And yeah, for example, with the Turning Pro position was through an agency as well. And yeah, it just worked out so perfectly. Such a smooth process from start to finish.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think what's really helpful about working with these folks, I mean, it's not the only route to go. Like, we'll be candid and say, like, there are so many things that you can and should be doing if you are looking to kind of build yourself up as a marketing authority, an international marketing authority. You should be active on LinkedIn. You could be setting up your own website, joining communities and networking with folks, attending these co-working meetups if you can, but also working with agencies like this. I find... And I have another colleague on my team, Tammy, who is based in Nigeria. And this is something that we talk about so much, because if a company has never worked with South African talent before, even if they hire globally or remotely, there's a bit of but this is Africa kind of mindset, right? There's a bit of a like, oh, but is an African country up to snuff? Can they? Yes, we can. And I think it's so obvious to us, especially as soon as we get into these environments, we realize how, in many cases, how much more hardworking and how much more skilled we are as South African workers coming into these environments. But working with an agency, the company's already bought in. You don't have to sell South African talent and yourself, and the agencies do that work for you, which is really, it takes a weight off. I love that tip.
Yeah, and I think what you also said about building your own brand is so important. You have to be able to. Your LinkedIn has to be up to date. If you can do your website, do it. Be active. Put everything out there. Like you say, if there's a company that's looking for someone, they want to have some way of seeing what you've done and what you're doing. So. Creating that personal brand is so important.
It's incredible. And I love seeing the content you post on LinkedIn. I think it is such a fascinating way to learn about just the work that you're doing. I think you posted something about YouTube thumbnails the other day, and I was like, this is amazing. And then I went and checked out like Turning Pro's YouTube page just to see everything that was going on there. And like, even just that little snippet, like, you taught me something, and like I was enriched by that experience. And I think you can also help someone do the same in the same way that you are marketing yourself on LinkedIn. I think I haven't even pitched this to the Global Talent Co yet, but I think we're going to host a workshop or something about LinkedIn personal brands, because not enough South Africans do this.
Absolutely. And I think maybe we are used to a mentality of like, everything I learn, I keep to myself so that I can be the best.
Gatekeeping.
That I am. Yeah. So this now it's absolutely the opposite. Like, the more I learn, the more I want to share, because the more I share, the more I learn again. Because, when I put something up about YouTube thumbnails, which I watched hours and hours and hours of videos on the best thumbnails, and I put something up, and one person will add a comment that adds even more value to what I've already learned. Yeah, so that's very important. Yeah.
That's exactly the thing that happened to me. I started posting about how I was experimenting with building a personal brand on TikTok. I posted about that on LinkedIn. And so many people, I actually had a wonderful person who I think was a South African. I need to go back and thank them because this is such a South African vibe. She went and looked at my TikTok profile and she was like, listen, these are the mistakes that I think you're making. And her tips turned out to be some of the most important things that I did in order to kind of turn my channel around. So like, yeah, it's such a give and take. And I love networking. I could talk about this for hours. I want to talk about you more though. Let's talk about you more. So I'm going off on tangents. We're going to go over time again.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question that I wanted to ask you was on the other side of the coin. This is something we've touched on, but if you have anything to add, what do you think South African people bring to the table at these international companies? What sets us apart from our peers?
Definitely. And the one thing that I've heard everybody say is the work ethic. South Africans have very high work ethic, always available, always going extra mile. And I think, there's so many people that have kind of laid the groundwork for this, that, people really appreciate that and they really look out for that. And then it's also that our level of English. That's so important because most of these brands are brands, that are English, and in South Africa we're very proficient in English. So it's those two things I think definitely stand out. And then we're good people.
We are so much fun.
Yeah, we're good people. Yeah, why not?
I laughed. I lived in London a couple of years back, and it was so funny how my husband and I built this amazing network of friends, and they were all South African. I mean, we did have like some British friends who were wonderful, but it's just South African folks. Like we just, and I guess there's also that like level of camaraderie of a South African living abroad, but man, we are friendly. And this is something that Jerusha said as well, is that we have such a high EQ. Because we're so used to dealing with people who are so different to us because the country is so diverse. And we're used to we want to find common ground. And I think that is such an underrated skill.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And there is. And you are going to find cultural differences when you are South African working for an American company. Even when I was working for a British company, there was the word cheers, right? So cheers for me means, cheers, good. Cheers for my previous editor was, it was, thank you. He would use cheers as thank you. Yeah.
Cheers.
So I thought he meant like, okay, bye, goodbye. Yeah, I'm done. So I would say I did that, and he'd be like, cheers. And I'd be like, okay, so no feedback. It took me a while to figure that out.
I have one that is so similar. It's people in London particularly would say fine. Just like you would offer them like advice or like feedback, or like you would tell them and they go fine. But like in a way that they were like mad. And if a South African does that to you, you think, oh, what have I said? Have I upset you? And so often my boss would be fine. I thought she was mad at me all the time. She hates me. I don't know what to do.
It's so funny. Even sorry as well. We say sorry we use sorry a lot, and shame. Exactly. So that's very interesting. It's little cultural things like that that make it interesting.
They make it exciting. Yeah, but it's a very minor thing to grapple with in the greater scheme of things. I feel that kind of having worked in South African companies, I've slotted in really well.
Yeah. No, that's definitely one of the things that South Africans can do so well.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, time for more advice from you, Herman. What advice would you give to kind of young marketers who are maybe just coming out of uni or college or school? What advice would you give them if they are listening to the show and thinking, man, I want to be Herman when I grow up?
Well, I can approach this in a different way, in the sense that if I could go back to myself, like, because I've been thinking about this a lot. And like, I was like, if I could go back and just tell myself, like, don't take this so seriously, don't be so obsessed with reaching like a certain milestone at a certain time. I was really obsessed with, like, I was putting unnecessary pressure on myself and just burning myself out for, I don't know for what. Like, here I am, I'm 40 now, and I'm on a whole different career path that I didn't even know existed. So, like, if you're starting out in your career, take it day by day, learn as you go. The job you might have in 10 years probably doesn't even exist now. So don't have these expectations on yourself to be in a certain place at a certain time, because let me tell you, I didn't even know this job was available when I entered the market. No,
that's amazing. Yeah, I get to like interview people on podcasts and like make crazy TikToks and write about my, like, how cool is that? Like, if you had told me at school, like, this is what you would be doing, I'd be like, sorry, what?
Yeah, so I think the one, and I always say this, the one constant in this industry is change. Like, change is always going to be there. Be flexible, be versatile, be willing to adapt and learn, because it's constantly going to change. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think to kind of pull on that thread a little bit more is there are so many incredible people sharing their maps to get to where they are. So whether that is the Turning Pro podcast, learning from founders, how did they build what they've built? I love podcasts. I think they're so incredibly helpful, and they're great because you can listen to them while you are washing toddler laundry or, that I can fit them into my life, but also communities, taking courses. I think don't underestimate just kind of absorbing information. If it ignites a spark in you, if listening to an episode of a podcast or watching a YouTube video ignites something in you, then follow that spark and see where it takes you, because you could end up doing something really cool.
And this is the thing that which I think, coming from a journalist background, is curiosity, like just being so curious about things, and being curious about AI right now. I've just been jumping into ChatGPT universe and like exploring and like completely just going in there by myself, trying to figure things out and finding out new things along the way. So being open to that. AI it's been here for so long, but the train is starting to speed up now. So if you're not on it yet,
I love this topic of conversation. Like, I feel like we could go down. So, because I was very initially, I think, as someone who makes content, which is what an AI does in many cases, better than me, in a lot of ways. So I was very anti AI initially, but now that I've started to kind of learn and explore, and my manager, Haley Griffiths, said this to me, and this like clicked something in my brain. She was like, AI is not going to take people's jobs, but people who know how to use AI efficiently are going to take people's jobs.
Absolutely.
I love that. Like, and also to your point about like experimenting, a lot of the technology is not where it's going to be, but I think if you get in ahead of the curve and you play it, and there are so many cool tools, even outside of ChatGPT, that use AI.
Yeah. And I know about a few places where AI is, outright banned from being used in the workplace, which I think just sets those people back so much. And for example, I use AI as one person. I am now able to, use AI for ideation. So I sit by myself. Yes. I need to brainstorm ideas. I brainstorm ideas with AI. If I do research for the podcast, so I go through all the sites, do all my research, and then there's a great AI app as well that helps you fact check. So I put all my research in there, and it checks that all your information that you have gathered is correct, and it gives you the source. I'll share with you. It's in ChatGPT. There's different apps.
Yes.
So I'm using ideation one. I'm using one for fact checking. There's even a marketing and advertising one where if I want to write copy for social media, I go to that because that one is aimed at specifically, promoting content. So it's not about sitting there and letting AI do the job. It's like AI is a tool that I'm using, like Grammarly, which is also AI,
yes.
to improve my work and
I
just make me better at what I do. Yeah.
I love that. I feel like we need to collab on a post about like AI tools or like ways that you use AI to like augment your work rather than replace your work, because it is never going to do what you do as well as you do.
Exactly. And I'm not a sub, I'm not a sub. So
sub editor for someone who's never worked in media.
Oh, yeah, of course. So yeah,
when you say sub, I think of things now. Let's cut that out of the pod.
No, this is good. That's good. That's a good one.
I'm not a sub.
Yeah, I'm not a sub editor. So, if Grammarly can help me check that, I'm not going to accept every change it suggests, but like there's another eye that's going over my work.
Exactly.
So that I hand in like work that's perfect.
100%, especially when you are a one-man show. Yeah, like you are right now. Like who's checking your work? And that is something that I've grappled with as a solo content marketer at my previous role before I was able to hire a team. I was sending out newsletters to like 5,000 people. Now I send newsletters to like 60,000 people, which terrify me. But 5,000 people was like a big deal. And I was like, please, I was begging engineers to like, just read it, just check it, just see that it's fine. Yeah. Now, obviously I have a team who does help sub-edit my work.
Yes.
But my favorite tool for that, apart from Grammarly, which I always have turned on, is an AI tool called Speechify, which is amazing. Oh, yeah. It's so cool. It reads it back to you. It reads your work back to you.
Okay.
But the best part of this, and it sounds like natural speech. A lot of these kind of tools that do this don't sound normal. So I'm going off on a tangent here, but this is such a cool tool.
No. Yeah.
But you can pick the voice that you hear it in. And somehow this company has managed to get Snoop Dogg and Gwyneth Paltrow.
So Gwyneth Paltrow just reading back your newsletter?
She reads. Gwyneth knows so much about TikTok now.
That's insane.
After reading all my content. No, it's amazing. And like AI, it helps me work smarter and it helps me work better. And I think that's a really important point to make. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on that note, that is everything I wanted to ask you and more. Herman, do you think that there is something missing from this conversation in terms of advice you would give or reality checks, or have we covered everything that you think is necessary?
There's one thing that I had to get right when I started working international, and that's taxes. So yes. Taxes is a big thing, and you don't want to get that wrong. So I did get an accountant. I felt that was a very mature moment for me, but I got somebody to help me with that because that's just not my field of expertise. I literally just did some research on Google and found a company that does accounting. And now I'm keeping, track of all my income and expenses.
And expenses, because you can claim your expenses back, right?
Yeah. And I use...
Your home is your office.
I'm using Canva. I'm using... I've got subscriptions to a lot of tools that I use for this work. And that's important to keep track of in your financial journey because, you don't want to get hit by the end of the financial year and then... No, you'll suddenly have to pay a bunch of money that you're not ready to pay. So, I think that was a big one that I luckily picked up on from the start.
Gosh, that's such a good tip, and that's also something I had no idea about as well. I think also we need to also, when I'm talking about workshops for the community, like we need to have like a financial person come in and be like, listen, put your tax money in a separate account, okay? Because it's not your money.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I do that too. I love that. Thank you for that wonderful tip. Herman, where can people find you?
I am on LinkedIn, Herman Eloff, and I am on Twitter, Herman Eloff as well. So, that's easy. For work, you can hit me up there. That'll be cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. If you are looking to connect with people like Herman and myself, we're not gatekeeping on this podcast. We're sharing the knowledge. Obviously, I mentioned the SA Tech Marketers community, which we're going to be building out at the moment. We are sending out some invites. Herman, your invite is coming.
Sweet.
So hopefully Herman will be in there as well if you would like to connect with him. But yeah, it's called SA Tech Marketers. The link is below. If you are looking to find an agency to help you find a remote job as a marketer in South Africa, the Global Talent Co. has got your back. Check out their websites. They could be the gates that you need to get your foot in the door. That's a terrible metaphor. I know what I'm doing, I promise.
Makes sense.
I need to get some more coffee. Herman, thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful to connect with you again.
Thank you.